Growing up as a kid, I was always fascinated by building things out of Lego and pulling things apart to see how they were made. I kind of lost that going through high school. Didn't really take on any creative pursuits for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why that is the case. And then I went into university, studied psychology. And in my final year of the course, there was an environmental psychology subject, which we had to go to a primary school, map out the playground and kind of analyse how the layout of the space and the play equipment and that kind of thing was influencing the children's behaviour. I found that really fascinating, especially obviously the drawing side of things and just the impact that design can have on people. Once I finished psychology, I then went and started studying architecture. Did that for about 2 years and just found myself getting lost in the details that were designing hospitals and apartment blocks and that kind of thing. I'd spend half my time working on a door handle or something small, so I thought that I'd tag out of that, and product design and industrial design would probably be a better fit. I like to take on the Dieter Rams philosophy of good design being as little design as possible. I think if you can get a lot of things out of the way that kind of distract from the core idea of what you're trying to do. So if you can refine it down to the bare minimum of what it is that you're trying to say or trying to achieve, you often end up with a really honest and simple idea or simple solution. We've got a few different things in Hightide. It's sort of probably a few different approaches. The streetscape stuff is obviously pretty closely linked to the site and the location. So the flight deck is obviously a lot of fabricated sheet metal. It's the Brisbane International Airport, so that was inspired by aircraft and those forms and those materials. The wave benches, which are kind of on the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast in southeast Queensland, are inspired by the natural forms of the beach and that kind of thing. In terms of the products that are in there, they're really materials focused. So the botany screen is marine grade plywood, the hangman clothing rack is bent stainless steel tube, and the crease chairs explore the plastic sheet material. The crease chair is probably the most unique approach in terms of the products and projects that are in the book. Just a different approach to how I would normally design things. Often it's very CAD focused, developing designs purely on computer and not a great deal of material prototyping, whereas this particular piece was really driven by the material. So it's about, it was quite difficult to model that in CAD, so it was really about manipulating the material, scale models to see what you could actually achieve with it. The motivation, it was originally intended for acoustic panelling in offices and that kind of thing for screening, but it was only ever really being used as flat sheets. So I was trying to take that material and basically come up with a three-dimensional form. I didn't really have any preconceived idea of what the outcome would be. Ultimately it was a chair, but it wasn't really the intent. It was really just about seeing what the material could be capable of. The environment is something that should really be considered always in design, but not solely in design, but in all the choices that we make. And I think it's a pretty interesting time. I think that the impact of the environmental issues on the choices that we do make, particularly in design, are kind of driven by marketing a little bit at the moment. I mean, a decade or so ago, environmental considerations just weren't really even thought of. Currently, it's kind of used as a point of difference, and I hope that as we progress, that won't actually be the case. It won't need to be that. It's kind of be the starting point. It won't really be spoken of. I think it will have to be, or the product won't really exist. But for me, I think that what's most unique about Queensland design is really the relationships between the designers. It's not something that I've really experienced anywhere else, but it seems like a really supportive culture and a lot of collaboration, and the idea of moving forward together rather than competing against one another. Just the remoteness of Australia kind of forces designers to be independent and self-sufficient. So we kind of have to be across all aspects of not only designing it, but arranging manufacture, marketing, and then distribution. Which is it's obviously a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. When that autonomy, can be quite a liberating thing to do. But it is also challenging to be able to manufacture things cost effectively. And for me personally, I think the greatest challenge is to figure out how to distribute that concept of the tyranny of distance is very challenging to be able to figure out how to get your products to the rest of the world from Australia is quite difficult. Yeah, I think Australia's in quite a unique position, really. I mean, you look at particularly Europe, and it's got such a long history of design culture, so could be quite challenging for designers in Europe because they're kind of referencing that or building on that. But in Australia, it's being such a young design culture, it allows us a great deal of freedom. We've also got a close connection to Europe and America culturally. But geographically, we're obviously in the Asia Pacific region, which is I think a fantastic opportunity. So the fact that we can be so adaptable allows us to draw on references from everywhere and to be able to tailor what we do to those particular markets.